slide.
All right, so once you get the tech done, everything else is easy, right? So hi, I'm Jeff Wolfe. I've had a career being married to Dory, successful so far. And also a career in infrastructure design, building design, construction. We started and ran a solar company that got kind of big. And then I've been through a couple other positions. Most recently, before I'm doing now, was president for the Americas of a EV charging manufacturing company based in Brisbane, Australia. I ran the Americas, learned a lot about EV charging. And now I'm CEO and co-founder with 3 other great folks of a company that's working to make EV charging easier and faster and cheaper to install. And so in a lot of ways, the top tier is electrification of everything. And I've been working throughout my career for the last 20-something years to electrify everything, really, without quite knowing it that way. And technology's come a long way. So let's just go through what that means. Go next slide. And actually, first, why we want to do it. So can you minimize that maybe?
Yep. I was trying to get you to be the speaker. So there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I want.
All right.
Far away.
So can the people online hear me all right?
If you could get closer to the microphone, it would be a little bit better.
Where's the mic?
Oh, this one. I can do that. Anyway.
So I'll talk and please tell me if I'm not coming through on the microphone.
This is better now. Thank you.
All right, good. Thank you. So electrification, everything. I think you skipped this slide or else the things that work. Yeah, there you go. So why do we want to electrify everything? We want to electrify everything because it's more efficient and because it lets us have a cleaner environment, forgetting about climate change, and because power generation and the uses of fossil fuels are, of course, a big contributor to climate change. So people think about electrifying everything, and the US uses, I don't know the numbers, I should have looked up, but it's like 74 quadrillion BTUs of energy a year. Well, it turns out that 2/3 of that energy that we use is wasted. Rejected energy. What's rejected energy mean? So when I make electricity at a power plant, what I do is I burn coal or burn gas or burn something in most power plants, and I make heat. And in a conventional thermal power plant, you make heat, make steam, and that steam turns into turbine. And I've designed this kind of plant. And there's a lot of losses in that plant. So you take a gallon of oil or a ton of coal, and that's got X amount of energy. You only get about 1/3 of that energy out. Now, in a gas turbine plant, the most efficient, highest efficiency, most modern gas plant, which most of them are not, you can get up to like 60% out, 40% losses. Most of the losses are heat, and it doesn't do anybody any good. In fact, it does bad. And it's, in fact, people talk about reliability of the different electric generation methods. Thermal plants have an Achilles heel. As our climate gets hotter, they use something to cool themselves. They use something to eject that heat into. Sometimes it's air, sometimes it's water. But the hotter the water is, the hotter the air is, the less they're able to reject heat. And they weren't designed for the higher temperatures. So they actually have to throttle their capacity down. And sometimes actually have to go offline. France is having a huge problem right now. They've got nuclear plants, okay? Love them, hate them, whatever. But nuclear plants basically use uranium to boil water. Okay, they boil water, they create steam, they create electricity. The nuclear reactor is simply a way to heat water. And they got to reject a lot of heat. And they use rivers in France. And the rivers are drying up. And their capacity of the nuclear plants is way down. And this is really bad timing when you got the gas shut off in Russia as well. So France is in a real pickle and not helping Europe in their problems with their nuclear plants. So when we electrify everything, we get rid of a lot of the rejected heat losses. Now, if we electrify everything and still burn coal, right, that's a problem. We haven't gotten rid of those rejected losses. But when we electrify everything, we can in fact use renewable resources to make the electricity. I can't run my gas car on electricity. I can run my electric car on electricity that's created from clean power. So it's a transition. We're in a transition here. People say, well, we can't change overnight. Of course you can't change overnight, but you can change. So the reason we want to change is to make things more efficient. We take whatever the number is, 74 quadrillion BTUs of energy. We take it down to like 25 quadrillion, which is still a lot of energy, but it's like 1/3. So just by electrifying, we save. I think Mark Dickinson at Stanford Experiment has done a lot of work on this, created plans, and he has. I think he cut the energy use by something over 50% just by electrifying with renewables. So it makes the problem we're solving huge, but much less than if we just replace it on a BTU by BTU basis. And this obviously is an electric generation. It's at home heating, industrial uses. Everything we do to heat with a fossil, we reject part of that heat and don't use it. All right, next slide. So when we electrify everything, click, there you go. We do. When we electrify everything, we need to get electricity everywhere. And we have generation, and there's a question about, do we have enough generation if we electrify it? We have transmission lines, which take the power from the electric generation location and bring it closer to where we need it. Doesn't bring it all the way to where we need it, brings it closer, brings it to what's called a substation. And there's, I don't know, there's like 100 substations just in Houston, maybe there's more. Okay, they serve your neighborhood, they serve the commercial area. And then we take from the substation and we take it out to distribution. Distribution is the wires you see running down the street. Those are and you keep on getting lower and lower voltage as you do this. They run along the street. That's what you connect your house to. That's what this building is connected to. That's the distribution line that's coming in and powering this projector right now. So we've got issues at each step of the way here that we've got to solve as we electrify more and more, because our existing distribution system that serves this church wasn't designed necessarily to handle the higher loads we have when we electrify everything. If we put a bunch of EV chargers in here, we have problems. If we put a bunch of induction cooking rather than electric cooking, that just saves. We go to LEDs rather than other lights, we save. So there's some pluses and some minuses on the electrification. But you've got to understand that. And then when we go to renewable energy, sometimes the renewable energy can be put where the power plant was. Sometimes it can't be. We got to build a new transmission. So there's problems to solve here, but they're not actually gargantuan. Because of the efficiency we can get, because of the tech I'll show you later on, we have almost enough generation today to probably electrify all of the cars and trucks. Now, we've got to manage that charging and do it in the right period of time. That's part of what we're working on. But we're probably enough, if you run the generation 24 hours a day, you probably have enough to do it. It's the wrong kind of generation. So we need to build new generation anyway, whether we have enough or not. And we probably need to build it in different places. There's not a lot of big thermal power plants out in West Texas. That's a great place for wind. So we need, that's where we build some transmission, solve that problem. We need to build more transmission to put that down. Substations are probably big enough. Maybe we need to do a little bolstering, but they're probably big enough. And the distribution lines, we need to probably do some bolstering and some replacement. The conventional wisdom is we need to rebuild our entire distribution system in the next 20 years. It took us 100 years to build it. We're going to rebuild it in the next 20 years. And there's a bunch of problems with that. One is, it costs a lot of money. Two is, engineers. We're not minting engineers fast enough. I'm an engineer, Joy's an engineer. We both do a little bit of engineering. But we're not creating enough engineers to redesign our entire distribution power system and transmission power system and install it fast enough. So we need to have a different way to do this. This is part of what we're working on. Is we think one of the solutions to distribution lines is to put local energy storage. So put a battery here at the church, put a battery near your homes, put a battery in the strip malls, put local batteries in. Because then, think of batteries as a tank. And think of the power line of water lines. You got a small water line feeding a tank. You feed that water in all the time. Then when you want water, you take a fire hose and you dump water. But you don't use that fire hose all the time. So the battery is like a tank on site that lets you manage the total demand. So that existing line can serve a larger peak. We have a peak cost, not a continuum. So that solves, we think, a lot of the problem with rebuilding distribution lines, but there's other problems too. What happened in Winter Storm Uri? Well, right? So fortunately, some of us had gas heat, gas fireplaces, some of us had other means to heat the houses, some of us got really cold, too many people died, right? And so as we switched to electricity for everything, not just for your cooking, or not just for your air conditioning, but for your heating and your hot water and your transportation, we need to make the electric power system more reliable. Today, the power system is pretty reliable at the substation. Most of the outages happen on the distribution lines. The big problem we have is that no one lives at the substations. And so having substation reliability, when we're relying on this for our lives at our houses, doesn't work. So we've got to change how we build. So even if we rebuilt this whole distribution system as a bigger copy of itself, we're not solving that problem. And of course, we live in a new and strange world now that has cyber threats, physical threats, and the climate change that we're already causing here is causing more stress to living people. So we need to rebuild it differently, and this is part of what we're working on, is trying to figure out how to rebuild this differently in a smarter way that costs less money and makes your home, your business more resilient. Next slide. All right, so I wanted to show an example, a more detailed example of cars. What's more efficient, an ICE internal combustion engine, ICE car, or an EV, electric vehicle? And these are EPA numbers. Well, we'll hate them, whatever. But yeah, mess this up. Yeah, I messed this up. Go to the next slide. I cross-labeled these. So this is actually the ICE car.
Is that right?
No. I'm sorry. No, back. Okay, I'm confused. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Then here it is. So this is the ICE car. You've got losses in your engine. An internal combustion engine is horribly inefficient. You put in fuel, and you lose 70% of the energy you put into it, right in the engine before you go anywhere. Then you lose more by different electrical loads. You have final output of a gallon of gasoline in, you get say 20% of that gallon is only used. 80% is lost, and that's lost as heat. So not very efficient. And then I just read an article. I've had time to substantiate it, but it's an article looking at the electricity used to extract, transport, refine, and get to the car gasoline. And I gotta check this further out, because it said that for 100 miles for a car, it takes 40 kilowatt hours of power to get fuel to that car. If that's true, an electric car takes 30 kilowatt hours to move 100 miles and no gasoline. And then we have an ICE car that takes 40 kilowatt hours and fossils. So I don't know if it's true or not, but there's some amount of electricity that goes into that fossil fuel creation, right? Because yeah, it's naturally occurring in the ground. You can't burn that car, and it's not where your car is. So there's energy to make the car, there's energy to refine and get the fuel to the car as well. Additional losses that aren't really true. Now we can go to the next slide. So electric vehicles, just skip to the bottom, the punchline, power of the wheels is 70%. And of that 30% losses, 17% is recovered by regenerative braking. You guys know what regenerative braking is? So when I put my foot on the brake on an ice car, the pads go against the brake drum or the disc, and it slows the car down, and I create heat, and I have the heat go up into the sky. When I put my foot on the brake on an EV, the first thing that happens is the electrical motor is used to slow the car down. My brake pads don't go against that disc. When I push down harder, then I actually use the physical mechanical brakes. But most of my braking is done by the motor, and when I do it with the motor, it spins the motor backwards, and a motor spinning backwards is a generator, and it generates power, and it goes back into the battery. So when I go downhill, I can actually create energy. One of my co-founders lives at Colorado right now, and he took a Sunday drive in his Tesla, and he went from Loveland down in the flats just north of Denver up to, I think it was the highest road you can drive to in Colorado, 14,000 feet. And he started out full, and he's got a Model Y, so he probably has 250, 230 miles of range. And he drove up the mountain. He got there at 132 miles of range. This is a 2.5 hour drive. He drove home, and he had 136 miles. Because he regenerated the whole way down and effectively used no electricity. A lot of stuff you see in the web, you guys are smart enough to know the lot of stuff you see in the web is bullshit. You'll see, oh, but EVs take a lot more energy to make, batteries take a lot more energy to make. And 10 years ago, that was true. But, you know, we have technology progression, and battery making is getting much more efficient. Batteries are getting much more efficient. We're learning how to actually take the energy out of a car, making it about 2 or 4 years ago, and they were trying to figure out how to take the emissions out of the production of the car, because this is 10 years ago. The emissions from a car was half from driving and half from building it. So if we take and convert every car that we make into an ICE car, into an EV, and don't do anything with the manufacturing, we've only solved half the problem. So they're really working hard on getting the carbon footprint of the car manufacturer down as well. They're making a lot of progress, really staggering progress. Let's move on. So let's start focusing on the home, because we all live in some kind of a home, apartment, home, whatever. We all live someplace, and there's a lot we can do in that home that can get rid of all the fossils out of it, which, you know, not only helps to mitigate your climate impact, but also makes your house healthier. There's more and more articles coming about, you know, burning natural gas inside your house in a cook stove. Turns out it's not good for you, right? I mean, you know, we're always told don't bring your propane grill inside, right? That's bad. But there's really no difference in your propane grill and your cook stove. So they're finding out that, you know, there's things like benzene in natural gas, and that, you know, sitting over a cook stove and burning, that's not good for you. You know, so getting gas at your home has multiple benefits. And then, you know, with the natural gas prices right now, it makes it a cost benefit as well. So you all know about solar and PV and battery storage. You may have heard about heat pumps, if that in a second. You can also take your cooking and not just go to electric cooking, but go to induction cooking, get to that. Thermostat's part of your HVAC system. Who has a smart thermostat here? Who knows what a smart thermostat is? All right, who has one?
Yeah,
Something that, anything that does something more than just set the button on it. Does it do anything automatically?
Turn it on. Same as it at night and in the morning.
Yeah.
Every 4 times a day.
Yeah, so that's kind of an old style smart thermostat. You can get newer ones that you can have remote sensors. And so we have an Ecobee, and we can put that on vacation mode for when we go away and have the temperature be, you know, 86 degrees when we're away because we're not there. But also, if it doesn't see any motion in the house, it'll go on vacation. Now, it's smart enough to know that it doesn't see any motion in the house, and it's 1 a.m, it doesn't go on a vacation with you. Because I think you might be asleep. But if you're during a scheduled time, when you've told it you're normally home and you're not there, it figures out that you're not there. And if it sees movement, it comes right back away and starts doing whatever you want to do. So it helps to conserve. And then you can actually go further, and if you're in a certain program, you can get the utility to actually control your thermostat, which some people get really freaked out by. But it can do things like not have blackouts happen because it helps to relieve the strain on the grid. And in some programs, they can save money as well. So let's go on to the next slide. So this is heat pumps. A heat pump, you all know what an air conditioner is, right? You live in Texas, so you know what an air conditioner is. A heat pump is the reverse of an air conditioner. An air conditioner, working with the hot air outside, makes cold air for inside. A heat pump works with cold air outside and makes hot air for inside. And I can describe the mechanical system makes it work, but who cares? It's all magic, but it makes the cold air from the outside become hot air. And 25 years ago, these were horribly inefficient. They've done a lot of work on these, like a lot of things, technology progresses, and now they're very efficient. But how can something be 500% efficient? We're all taught that things can be 100% efficient, right? Well, it can be 500% efficient because what that means is you put 1 kilowatt hour of power into it, and you get 5 kilowatt hours of cooling or heating out of it. And you do that because of the way the mechanics work. They don't have to create all that heat. They're just taking the heat from outside and boosting it a little bit. Not with electric heaters, but with a compression system, just like as an air conditioner. So they can become well more than 100% efficient, and become well more than 100% efficient, all the way down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. We have some heat pumps in our house in Vermont, and they work. And those are, what's right now, 10, 12 years old now, so it's gone a long way since then. So let's move on. Induction cooking. Has anybody ever cooked on an induction cooktop? How'd you like it? Yeah, Elena, right? So Dora and I had the pleasure to go to Paris a while ago, years ago, and the apartment we rented had an induction cooktop on it. I was blown away. I was like, wow, it's so much better than standard electric. Because when you turn an induction cooktop on, it goes on right away, rather than just while we were heating up. And it's actually better than gas. Because when you have a gas burner, you see the flames. The flames heat the bottom on top, and some of the flame goes up the side, and the air underneath gets hot, and the air goes up the side. Everything gets hot. And induction cooktop works with magnets, basically. So you need a magnetic pan. It doesn't work on aluminum pan, but you need a magnetic pan. You put that magnetic pan on, it heats the pan. It doesn't heat the air around it. And so you have much lower energy input than you do for a gas burner or a standard electric burner. Very good control, very fast, heats stuff fast, very clean. And you know, putting this in is a major retrofit because you got to bring power to where you get your gas. If you already got electric stove, you can replace an induction pretty easy. What we did is we bought a little 2-burner. We got a 6-burner gas cooktop. We took 2 of the grates off, put a little 2-burner unit on it. And you know, most of the cooking we do uses 2-burner. So most of the cooking we do now is on induction cooktop. It cost us $200, and we didn't need to spend, you know, $2,000 to replace our unit. And we get to experiment with it. We get to figure out if we like it or not. So it's this is the easiest electrification thing you can do in your home, is put in a 2-burner induction unit. Or a 1-burner.
That's giving you a lot.
So slide. All right, so water heaters, heat pump water heaters. Again, it's a heat pump, just like I talked about for the house, except it goes and it hits the water. These have come a long ways as well. They get a little cheaper. I should mention the infrastructure act we just heard about today that Biden's about to sign, as well as we're working for our lives, it seems like, has some incentives. The lower your income, the higher the incentives, which is appropriate, but even for everybody, there's some incentive to electrify your home, which will of course be a great job creator as well. EV charging, the US is woefully behind in EV charging. This is Bloomberg New Energy Finance. You know, China has 1.2 million plugs. Europe has 400,000 plugs. We've got 100,000 plugs. This is one of my slides I use for getting funding. It's like opportunity slide. All right, so last slide, EV charging at home, EV charging in public. That EV charging, this can be pretty easy to install. It costs, $1,000. You buy it, put it in yourself, and you'll get a permit like I did. It costs $600. If you're like my cousin out in Minnesota, it's going to cost her $8,000 because she needs a new electrical service, and the electrical service is over there, and she needs to run it over there to her garage. She needs to put the panels in both places. And it's a big deal. You don't have to have one of those EV. If you have a home, most of your charging can be done with a 110. You get 4 miles an hour out of that 110. And if you're only going 40 miles a day and you park 10 hours a night, you get 40 miles. So you can just plug in a 110. Or you can go to public charging. And there's not a lot of public chargers around Houston unless you have a Tesla. There's some. But there's some. It's growing. And the infrastructure bill that was passed last year is about to release money now to put chargers every 50 miles along all the highway corridors. Every state supplied. Even Texas has a plan, believe it or not, to put highway chargers in. So we'll be seeing a lot more highway chargers in the next 3-4 years over time. So because of the supply chain shortages, because people actually like EVs when they start to drive one, order your EV now. By the time you can get it in a year and a half, there'll be chargers. That's it. Questions? I mean, time questions?
Yeah, we have time. I just wanted to make sure. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you. A lot of information. So Joe, I'll let you open it up and manage the questions if there are any.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. And we do have, let's see, about 8 or 9 minutes for questions. So if anyone has any, just go ahead and shout them out or put them in the chat, whatever you prefer. Let's see, there's something in the chat already. Oh, very informative. Thank you.
Joe, hold on 1 minute. Go ahead. There you go.
They existed. They weren't very efficient.
I'm going to repeat the question, or it was, Linda has a heat pump from 1990, so it probably is not the more efficient type. What should she do?
Well, 1990, you're probably due for a replacement regardless. I mean, HVAC systems wear out. You've got 32 years on that. It doesn't owe you anything. It should be easy to replace it with modern heat pump because you've got all the right pieces there. You probably just need to replace the outdoor unit, maybe the coil inside, but it should be pretty, it'll be less expensive for you to do that than for us to replace our gas heater.
This is Joe. I have a question also about the heat pump. So I've read about it for a while. I know the benefits, but I don't really understand too much how it really works. So my question is, for folks like myself who have central air conditioning, what's required and how complicated is it to replace central air conditioning with a heat pump?
So it depends. And I used to be an HVAC engineer and used to know a lot more about this, but it's changed and I've forgotten a lot. So I think what it requires is you need a new outdoor unit. And you need maybe a new coil and some controls. And so you may be able to retrofit that into your existing indoor unit, you have a central unit, or you may have to get a new central unit as well. None of your ducting needs to change. None of that needs to change.
Unless you do zone, like our central AC right now is not zoned. It comes on or it goes off. And our house doesn't really, but there's some houses that zoning might make sense. And so talk to your HVAC contractor, make sure they believe in heat pumps, right? Make sure that they like heat pumps, and then ask them what they recommend, whether zoning is appropriate.
Yeah, to expand on Dory's comment. So our house actually, we have a bedroom area and we have a non-bedroom area. And we could easily put in 2 zones. And why are we cooling the non-bedroom area at 3 in the morning? And just cool the bedroom area. And why are we cooling the bedroom area in midday? So you break that up and put in 2 separate systems, and that can be more efficient and more comfortable as well.
And more easily powered in an emergency backup off of a battery. You can say, we're going to have just this zone be our critical zone, and now you can get
Just
some.
design your system, so you can't keep your whole house hot, but you just want a safety room, right? And the other thing on hiring a contractor, when you talk to a contractor, if they say anything negative about a heat pump, find another contractor. Because half of them will say horrible things about heat pumps.
Does anybody else have any questions? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have an off-the-wall question. I am an electrical engineer, so I believe we can follow on the. However, I also aware, do you know, are the standards now being created? If we electrify everything in the world, then we're gonna have a big problem. If there is one of those rare geomagnetic storm events like the frontal mass ejection or all of those, that EMPs coming from Iran and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it really would wipe out a lot of stuff. I think being built down there.
So let me.
Did everybody hear?
Let's put a little bit into English. So there are what's called solar storms and what's called nuclear weapons, both of which can put off a very high energy pulse, either from the sun or from the weapon. And that very high energy pulse can actually blow up large pieces of electrical systems. When I say large pieces, like the entire US grid. And they can blow it up in a way that it doesn't come back on tomorrow. Because you blow up transformers, you blow up circuit breakers, you blow up a lot of stuff. It's a very, very bad thing. Are we doing something to avoid that? There are things we can do to avoid that. Are we doing things to avoid that? No, because that's how we operate. Unfortunately, as we electrify everything, that problem gets worse. However, it is already bad enough today that if that happens, the DoD's projection zone would lose something like 90% of our people. Because grocery stores can't keep food. No food processing plant operates. All refrigerated drugs, of course, go away. And these are things that are already electrified. So it is a absolutely terrifying thing, and nobody's doing anything about it. DoD is looking at it, but
So that's the reason it seems that at this time that we're gonna redo stuff, we're gonna spread out more of this to be the time to put in equipment that won't be so expensive.
that would make sense, yes.
So distributed generation, all of the work we're doing to.
So distributed, some of that may survive, but your solar inverter is an electronic device. And electronic devices, if they're connected to the grid, get hit.
Well, that's pleasant. Can we end on a better note? Andrew,
Let's wrap it up with one more question, I think, and then we'll move on with the agenda.
Andrew's got a question here, and that'll be the last one. Go ahead, Andrew.
So the question about EV charging, one of the things people don't like is trying to say it's the time to fuel your car with gas. So then new generations of technology would solve that problem, would you just have to put in a whole lot more chargers to make them available?
Great question. Again, technology marches forward. 5 years ago, the fastest you could charge your car was about 30 miles in 10 minutes. And so you're talking about, an hour to charge that, hour and a half to charge that every week. Which is not a long time, but it's time, more than it gets, right? Now, the latest vehicles that are coming out are doing like 100, 150 miles in 10 minutes. So it's not a gas station experience, but it's pretty close. And what we're working to do is distribute these charging stations all over the place. So rather than going to the gas station to fill your vehicle, you go someplace to do an errand, and while you're in that errand, you charge. And you don't charge 10 miles, you charge at a higher rate. So when you get out, you've got your daily mileage. Because most of us travel 40 miles a day. That's the average. And so if you've got someplace where you can go for 10 minutes, come out, and you got 60 miles in your car, well, you never spent any time charging. You did your errand. So if you can charge where you go rather than going to charge, that negates some of the problem. The higher speed of the batteries and the chargers also negates the problem. This is not going to be as technology goes forward, you're not going to be spending your life charging.
And we call it differently convenience when we go on a road trip. Instead of 10 minutes to get to the gas station, you take 20 and go for a walk in between our.
Well, we took the Tesla and we went out and returned back to Mobile, Alabama. And I had to stop in Baton Rouge at the Tesla charging. I had to. And unfortunately, it was gonna be about a 25-minute charge. And there was an Acme oyster house there. So I had to have a plate of oysters, which I wouldn't have had otherwise. So it was very inconvenient.
All right, thank you, Jeff, very much. And
All right.
we'll surround.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen again and we'll continue with our presentation. All right, and now it's time for our monthly calling campaign. And Mark, will you be able to lead us in the calling campaign?
Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, so we've been doing the calling campaign for a while. And of course, our ultimate goal is to encourage our congresspersons to lend their support for the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. However, currently, I know with our two senators, we're urging them to support a different bill. So if you want to join the monthly calling campaign, which is simply you join it by clicking on that link there, you will receive a reminder once a month, hey, it's time to call your senators and representatives. And yeah, that's what the monthly calling campaign. We want to continue persistent, consistent communication with our legislators about the importance of climate change to their constituents. So I'm going to demonstrate a call in case you haven't done this, and the link for finding out your representative's number, phone number, and senator's number is on there, cclusa.org/call. So I'm going to start off with Senator Cornyn, and I've found that it's better to call the local number. I believe that's listed when you go through that link.
So this part bothers me when we have to, so I'm gonna close them off. Or I'm going to- And to encourage you to.
I also put all the links in the chat window right now. I know the folks that are there in person though can't access those. Okay, Mark, you want to proceed?
Yeah, I'm calling Senator Cornyn.
Okay.
Thank you for calling the Office of United States Senator John Cornyn. We are sorry that we cannot get to the phone. Our regular office hours are 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and Fridays 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. To leave a message for the senator or a member of staff, please leave your name, zip code, and a brief message after the tone. Thank you.
Hello, Senator Cornyn. My name's Mark Harrinan. I live in zip code 77080. And I'm calling to urge you to support Fostering Overseas Rule of Law and Environmentally Sound Trade Act. That's Senate Bill 2950. This will increase efforts to protect and restore forests globally. Also for governments to work together to reverse and eliminate illegal deforestation. Thank you. All right, so this is opportunity for each of you to reach out to your senators and representatives, and we'll give you about 5 minutes for that, Joe.
Yep, I'll put the information back on the screen here so you can see. Okay, it's there. And for the new folks that are trying to do this for the first time, because it's the weekend, it's after hours, and when you call after hours or on the weekend, nobody's going to answer the phone. It's always going to go right to a voice message. And so there's really no concern to be really nervous at all about that. It's just you're going to be leaving a voice message. So please, everyone, let's go ahead and we'll start our calls. We'll give you a few minutes and then we'll come back and continue with our agenda. Thank you. Story in the church there, is everybody finished? Okay, we're going to continue on. I'm going to share my screen again. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So on this slide here, this is where we do another additional follow-up action where we send emails to our senators and representatives. And so here, now that we've passed this major landmark climate bill, you can see the headline here, we did it. And it's all thanks to us. Hello, guys in the church. Guys in the church, if you can pause, we're trying to continue on.
Okay, and we're back here in person.
Great. So yeah, let's continue on here. So we're going to take additional action on this slide. I have a web link here. And what we're going to do here is specifically for our Democratic representatives, we want to thank them. And so when we go to this link here, we're going to thank our Democratic representatives, if that's the congressional district where you are, Reps Lizzie Fletcher, Al Green, Sheila Jackson Lee, Sylvia Garcia. If you're in any of those districts, when we go to this link, it's going to pop up. We want to thank them for their historic vote in the House. Let me go and let me put that link in the chat window again here. Okay, and that link is now in the chat window. So if you're in one of those districts, we want to please go ahead and thank our Democratic representatives for their vote. We'll pause here for a few minutes. One more time. Okay, and so we have here one of the best CCL videos that I've seen. This was actually created a month or two back, and it's a thank you from Senator Whitehouse. And I'd like to play this one more time. Let me just stop sharing and make sure that I started sharing the correct way so everybody can hear that properly. Yep, okay, I have that. I'm going to play this thank you from Senator Whitehouse now.
Hi, I'm Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, and I want to start by saying thank you to Citizens Climate Lobby for the wonderful, really astonishing work that you've done to help us solve our climate crisis. Here in Washington, we are close to putting together the most comprehensive piece of climate legislation Congress has ever seen. We're going to have to do it in the Senate through the reconciliation process, which means we'll have to get all 50 Democrats on board and perhaps get the vote of Vice President Kamala Harris to put us over the top. But we have a real great chance to do it. President Biden began with a wonderful program, and we've added to it since then the methane fee, which instantly became the third most impactful climate intervention in the array of climate interventions that the Biden administration is supporting. And we're working to refine and define the border adjustment so that carbon pricing doesn't set one country against another unfairly, and we can protect American manufacturing and interests. And at the end of the day, my goal is to make sure that our combined plan includes a real price on carbon that will really drive down carbon emissions and set a standard for America to lead the world when we hit Glasgow in November. None of this would be possible without the energy of Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm really proud of the work that you've done, and I thank you. Hi, I'm Senator.
Okay, so that was from Senator Whitehouse, and I just wanted to share that again. I'm going to go on mute for just 1 second.
Anybody know what state Senator Whitehouse is? Colorado? Oh, Rhode Island. Thank you.
All right, I'm back again. Was there some discussion there? I may have missed that.
No, we were just confirming that he was representing Rhode Island. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Here on the next slide here, here's more information about the bill that just passed. It's actually referred to as the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. And there's already a CCL training available. It was recorded on video, and it's at this link here. I'm going to go ahead and put some more of these links in the chat window.
So if you are watching this on your phone, you'll have it. The CCL community. is where you go.
Okay. So that's also in the chat window now. Let me go back to the next slide. Some other miscellaneous topics coming up. And so our CCL meetings are generally monthly meetings. We meet every month. However, next month in September, we're going to make an exception and we will not be having our monthly meeting. Instead, we're going to be attending the Houston Community Climate Summit, which is at Rice University. It's on the exact same day as our normal monthly meeting. It'll be on September 10th, starting at 9 a.m. And we're going to be there representing ourselves and meeting with other Houston-based climate advocacy organizations. I'm going to put this link in the chat window also.
This information is in the newsletter. That's not on Monday too. So you have another way of getting these newsletter. If you feel you didn't get it, email me my newsletter.
I'm trying to figure out how to make that. Right.
Say it again.
He said something like that, doesn't do me any good.
Well, that's what he's saying is you can.
So that is now also in the chat window. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Here is a tabling event coming up in September. Unfortunately for us, it's on the exact same date. We're going to be at the Climate Summit meeting at Rice University. But for those that live on the northeast side of town, this is up in Kingwood. And this event is called In a Pickle Festival. They're having a festival there. And so we know that the Woodlands chapter of CCL was planning to be there, and they're going to be doing some tabling. If anybody might be interested that was on the north side and will not be attending the Climate Summit, that's another opportunity. And the CCL contact person there is Roseanne Friedman, and her phone number is there.
And Joe, there was a question in chat saying if we wanted, do we need tabling volunteers for the Rice Climate Action? If people want to volunteer the table, should they contact them?
Yes, so that's a very good question from Mark. And Mark, do you want to respond on that question about tabling at Rice University?
Sure. Yeah, get in touch with me. We always welcome the more people, the better. We have a chance to socialize while we're tabling, and a few people don't have to do all the work. So we can set up intervals, 1 to 2 hours, and you can join us and then come and go. So I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Great, thank you, Mark. Okay, back to the next slide here. This is a slide about our CCL National monthly speaker event. And CCL National has their monthly speakers. That starts immediately after the end of our meeting. So we will end at 12 noon today. And they have some very, very good speakers. They have Bob Inglis from the organization called Republic EN. Bob Inglis was previously a Republican congressman, I think in North Carolina, if I'm remembering correctly. I can't remember exactly. And he's an excellent speaker. He spoke at one of our Houston-based meetings we had. It was a regional meeting that we had for Citizens Climate Lobby. He attended that and he was excellent. There'll be a second speaker as well, Princella Talley. And so here's a brief description of what they'll be talking about. Expanding our outreach to include people from a variety of constituencies can strengthen our organization and improve our effectiveness as advocates. This month, we talked to Bob Inglis and Princella Talley about how they communicate with diverse audiences about climate change. And so the link is there also in that slide. I'll put that in the chat. Okay. And back to this slide, I'll go continue on. And now we're up to our 5 levers status reports. Starting off with Judith for lobbying, but Judith is not on the call. Does anyone have any updates that would like to speak for Judith?
Yeah, I told Judith I would step in for So just a reminder that we do have 96 co-sponsors of the Energy Information Carbon Dividend Act, which is to put a fee on carbon products. That is kind of on the back burner with the push to pass the Inflation Reduction Act, but it's still in a committee or committees. Yeah, and of course, we try to lobby in Washington a couple times a year. We did that back in June the last time. And to my knowledge, there has not been another lobby date set up in Washington. Does anyone have an update on that?
Yeah, I think it's, the end of November,
John is saying the end of November,
1st of December.
1st of December.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and then we encourage our liaisons for each representative in the Houston area to go ahead and schedule a lobbying meeting with either the representative or their liaisons to the public.
And Mark, this is Dory. I just remember sometimes during summer recess, we would just go and deliver cookies and just say thank you, right? So like Lizzie Fletcher was just nice not to have asked. And so maybe after this bill where they did something positive, we can just deliver something nice during the summer break. I don't know.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you,
that's all
Mark.
I have, Joe.
Thank you, Mark. I'll continue on. And then we have Court to talk about grass tops. Court, if you can get close to the microphone so we can hear you well. Thank you.
All right. So right now we've been working I've been helping other greater Houston area partners to host a county candidate forum. And this is October 2nd, 4 through 6. So various partners, CCE or CEC, SEER, the Air Alliance. There's a big group that's going to host this candidate forum. It's going to be at Greentown Labs, and where I'm kind of acting as the Citizens Climate Education Liaison. We're going to go under that name because that's our most bipartisan name to be helping with this group. And so what they've asked is for all of these partner organizations, we can ask 2 questions during this forum. So, it's going to be the judge candidates and then precinct 2 and precinct 4. And so if there's certain questions we want to ask, you can email me. My email is there at the top. And also, I'll just say for all of these different contacts, if you go to Texas Houston Central Chapter Group and Community, that's our personal webpage. And that was in the newsletter as well. So all of the information from today is either in the newsletter or our emails are out in the community. So if you have any questions that you'd like to bring forward for these county candidates, please let me know. And then Air Alliance Houston is sending out questions to basically the other higher level candidates. So our state reps and our legislators in DC. And there's a group of 6 questions that they have drafted. And they ask for the candidate to respond back to Air Alliance, and then Air Alliance is going to send this out as a resource for voters. And then bringing it back to just citizens climate lobby efforts, we started an effort to approach local or statewide professors in the economic realm to help us write a letter of support for carbon pricing. And we are going to add to different professors, so climate professors, to expand this so that we can get an op-ed published. So if there's any interest in helping to generate this list of professors to then send out in an email you can let me know. And with me attending weekly meetings for the climate panel, I'll be able to focus a little bit more on that initiative in September. The overall goal with Grasstalks is to higher level leaders that have high voices, whether they're churches like Emerson or state representatives or other entities. They help us whenever we go lobby. We can say, we got an endorsement from this church, they're in your district. They can understand that there's positive support for our carbon pricing act. It's great whenever constituents do it. It has a little bit more flex whenever it's a higher level. So that's the point of Grasstalks. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Court. I'll go on to the next slide now. Mark for grassroots.
All right, thank you, Joe. Yeah, so we're trying to reach ordinary citizens in our community, and definitely we have a calling to spread the word about, hey, here's what we can do about climate change. Most people are interested. It's in the news a lot these days, and extreme weather events this time of year. So it's a great opportunity. People are probably hungry for information on what we can do to take action and not just be helpless. So we do that through either giving presentations to groups or setting up a tabling event. And of course, the tabling event that I listed there, Joe's already referred to that. We haven't done anything recently with the tabling or presentations. However, we are making some outreach efforts to reach out to various groups. So I've reached out to Sierra Club and had a couple of leads on places where we may be able to table. I haven't heard back from the Sierra Club yet. Bel Air Farmers Market and Levy Park in central part of Houston. That was suggested to me as possible place where we can do tabling, either one of those. So plan to reach out to those. And then one of the members of my committee, Kristen, is going to reach out to the Methodist Church in Katy in October. They're having a craft show and we may be able to set up a table there. So those are the kinds of steps we take to secure an event like a tabling event or a presentation. That's it, Joe.
Thank you, Mark. And as far as presentations, I also just want to mention that previously we've done quite a few presentations. We do this as a group with several people from our CCL chapter all working together and participating. We've done presentations at Rice University previously for the student body there. For this Earth Day in April of this year, we went up to College Station to visit with the students at Texas A&M. We did a very, very in-depth, very detailed 2-hour workshop presentation there. And we've been invited to also provide a presentation at the University of Houston downtown. It'll be via Zoom sometime in late September. So these are a significant part of what we do as a chapter, and we welcome anyone who might be interested. I'll go on to the next slide. And the next slide is my slide for the media team. I'm the leader of the CCL Houston media team. And I normally list the activities that we've accomplished in the prior month. So one of the areas that we're responsible for is to put together and distribute out our Houston CCL Houston newsletter. And I provided the links there for our newsletter we sent out in July. And most recently, we sent one out earlier this week. Hopefully everybody received that. We also are very involved with the print media, submitting letters to the editor, to the Houston Chronicle, also occasionally submitting op-eds to the Houston Chronicle and other newspapers. And I listed there a letter to the editor I submitted in July 12th, to the Houston Chronicle based on a response to an article which was called ERCOT didn't think the Texas summer would be as hot as it actually is. according to the interim CEO of ERCOT. So I wrote a letter to the editor about that. We also are very active on social media, specifically Facebook and Twitter, not so much on the others, Instagram and TikTok, but we're always looking for volunteers that might want to help out. If anybody is interested in working with us on the media team, just please contact myself, Joe Garfunkel. My email is there. On the next several slides, I always like to give examples of what we have posted on our social media. This is specifically our Twitter account, which is at CCL Houston. I have about 4 or 5 pages here. I'll just go through it very quickly so you can see basically what we're doing. The first one on the left here, and this was new information for me, but apparently in Texas, in the northwest corner of Texas, up near Lubbock in the High Plains, that's how it's referred to, there are 11,000 wind turbines, but yet oftentimes when they're running at peak capacity, they have to turn off the turbines because the electrical transmission lines are not sufficient to bring all of that electricity to the major cities like Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. And so there's a critical need to build out the electrical infrastructure, which is, I think, something that was referred to by Jeff earlier in his presentation. So very, very interesting, but a critical issue that needs to be solved here in Texas. On the right side, I've been running this weekly series here, tracking the drought monitor. And as of last week, you may not be aware, but 87% of Texas is in either a severe to exceptional drought condition. It's extremely serious because of the hot weather that we're having. More postings. On the left side there, after the climate bill was just passed in the Senate about a week ago, I posted that out there. Historic climate bill passed in Senate. It'll kickstart the era of affordable clean energy in America. It's a game changer, it's a turning point, and it's been a long time coming. And then on the right, I'm always following up on the electric buses, electric school buses, specifically for HISD. I have a series of posts that I continue to put out there. And so this was an example of an article coming from Colorado. The state of Colorado recently committed to $65 million for new electric school buses. So in my posting here, to HISD, other states are moving ahead. What's causing the delay, right? It's good for students and the climate. Let's get on board and get moving. In the left side here, again, regarding the heat in Texas, this was an article about ranchers all across Texas and the impact on them having to sell livestock because of the growing costs of keeping the feed, right, keeping them fed, and the water is being dried up. So extreme heat drying up pastures, forcing ranchers across Texas to sell livestock. And then I have there the sentence, right? The most cost-effective solution to solve extreme weather at the scale and speed that's necessary, it's carbon dividends, which is what we want to get past. On the right side there, about our electrical capacity in Texas, Texas politicians won't say this, but solar is saving their tushies right now. The additional power provided by newly installed solar has so far probably prevented rolling blackouts this summer. A few more here, again, about the heat on the left-hand side. With the heat wave in Texas, ERCOT has broken the all-time electricity demand record at least 11 times this summer, and generators have been ordered to run nonstop with no maintenance. And then there's a quote there from an electricity expert: things are going to break eventually, leaving us without air conditioning at the most critical time when we need it. On the right side there, some good things happening at the Texas State Legislature in Austin. And so here we say, we testified to the Texas State Legislature regarding climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, methane leaks, and flaring. We had a CCL Austin volunteer there appearing in the State House. And this was a quote from the video there: flaring is to the air what the release of raw sewage is to our water. And then I included the video there as well. Very interesting to watch that. I think this is 2 more pages to go. I'll go through it quickly. The left side is talking about the cost of offshore wind, now much more economical than other types of generation. On the right side is where I posted my letter to the editor, and that was linked there in my Twitter tweet. On the left side, I also am looking for these editorial cartoons, which are, right on point, direct with a message, but also fairly amusing. Right. So in this picture, there's a coal plant on the right spewing out all these noxious fumes. On the left is a wind turbine. And the man there is saying, he's complaining, right? Those wind turbines are such eyesores, right? Why are we building such eyesores with wind turbines? So I like that one. And on the right side, another story about ERCOT and the electricity demand. We learned that ERCOT, when they're planning out and forecasting their electrical demand, they have never taken into account climate change and the rising temperatures. And so that's a major issue there. So I got through those, I'm done. And Dory, your slide for chapter development.
Thank you, Joe, for all that good work and all of the chapter leads. The last is me, the chapter development, and we did have a tabling event. Courtney came to Sunnyside with all things willing. We're going to have a the largest urban solar array is going to be there in Sunnyside. So we were tabling, helping people learn about that and about Citizens Climate Lobby. And so what we do at chapter development is get you all, welcome new members, call you, make sure you know about the newsletter and the meetings, and I can always use one or two more people to help. Every week we get in more new members, so it's a good way to touch base. So if anybody wants to help, let me know. And back to you, Joe.
All right, thank you, Dory. Continuing on, one more slide, a couple more slides actually. This is a meet and greet event coming up later in August. Who would like to speak to this one?
I'm happy to, Joe. So in Sunnyside, where we have been tabling, another volunteer, another CCL member, I believe, Ephraim is going to do a steam the block. He's taking an empty lot and filling it up with tabling, tents and food and good things. So we're going to go just make our social time. We try and do more than just a meeting each month. We try and get and meet with each other somewhere. And so we're suggesting that on Saturday, August 20th at 9 a.m., come down to Sunnyside. The address is there, and we'll just show support to the community. Not a tabling. I mean, there will be a table there. I will be there, but it is more of a time to just come and meet each other and get to know what's going on in Sunnyside. Okay.
What is steam the block?
All right, so Ephraim does a educational program. He has an outdoor solar classroom that is really cool, and you won't see that unless you drive by it separately. But STEAM stands for the STEAM. What is it? Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So STEAM, the block, he just works with kids in all those topics, but he works with solar as one of the avenues. He teaches math and he teaches science, and he gets kids inspired.
All right, thank you, Dory. I'm going to move on. And here's one more event that's coming up. Who wanted to speak to this one?
So Daniel Cohen, he is author of The Climate Gridlock and a professor at Rice. And so Judith, who is our lobbying lever leader, her church, St. Philip, had hosted him in July or June. And then there was such a great success. Daniel has offered to come back just for a Q&A based seminar. And so that is Tuesday, August 30th at 7 p.m. And while this was not in the newsletter, if you are interested, this link could be sent via email if you reach out to one of the lever leaders.
And we'll also put this into our Slack channel. Whenever we have new members joining, we always, Dory, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we always ask if you'd like to be added to our Slack channel, and a lot of these communications will go there as well.
That is true, Joe. I don't want to see the Slack.
Okay. So we're at the end of our meeting here. I'm going to stop sharing. And one thing that we always do like to do is take a photo at the end if everyone can turn on their cameras, and we'll get everybody in a nice photo. It's Rob, if you're able to turn yours on as well. Oh, great. Thank you. For the folks that are in the church, maybe I don't know if you can get closer together or not.
Okay, Jeff, you want to- so I can make this.
Okay, everybody ready? All right, I'm gonna take it now. Okay, I think I got a nice one. Let me just check. Okay, yes, that came out very well. So that's the end of our meeting for today. I always like to end right on time. I don't want to delay anybody. And I'll pause here though. Does anyone have any feedback or other miscellaneous questions before we end the call today? Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I've been trying to find out as much as I can about the new legislation. One way that the one time I saw climate or carbon taxation mentioned, it was that the legislation emphasized carrots rather than sticks. So that's the way some of this is perceived. Also, I saw something that was a little disquieting. A European airline, I can't remember which one, said that they were moving toward half of their aircraft fuel being what they called renewable, which generally is something like soybean oil or something like that, where you are essentially moving soil carbon into a fuel which turns into atmospheric carbon. So it's wise to encourage people, I think, to think full cycle, because the carbon is not necessarily from fossil sources. There's also soil carbon that might be put in the atmosphere that we'd rather not have it. So thanks, and everybody have a safe month.
Thank you, Jim. Any other feedback from anybody else? Go ahead, Sarab.
Yeah, I think it was quite an informative meeting. And I just wanted to add what Jim was saying, as he said, there is alternative fuel being used by many airplanes companies now. I think there are a few startups who are capturing carbon and converting it into fuel, which is being used by private companies right now. No commercial airlines, but private jet companies are using. So that's a good thing for the environment.
Good feedback. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And thank you for attending. And for the
Yeah.
folks at the church that might be new, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again.
Your banner that I have. So there's the banner.
Thank you, Dory.
Right.
All right, everyone have a great weekend. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Be safe.
Take care.